Welcome back, everyone. So in the last video, we introduced the concepts of social stratification, social class, and we also started talking about the distribution of wealth in the United States. Hopefully you found that video to be very insightful. I know the first time that I saw that video, it really opened my eyes because I, like the majority of Americans, didn't realize how disturbing this distribution of wealth is in the United States. As you saw in that video, and as you can see with some of the information on this particular slide here, the distribution of wealth in the United States is severely unequal. The top 1% holds about 40% of our nation's wealth, right? You saw how many times that line had to be stacked just to represent the 1%, the top 1% of our nation's richest people have this just disturbingly massive portion of the wealth in the United States. And it's so disturbing because, as you saw, a large number of Americans, right, in fact, like the bottom 60% of Americans are making just pennies in comparison. One of the particular data points that was introduced in that video that stood out to me so much was that a CEO of a company can make upwards of 380 times as much money as an average worker at that company. And they said that an average worker would have to work an entire month to make what some CEOs earn in a single hour, right? So this is just an indication to us that in the United States, we have a very unequal distribution of wealth. And like I mentioned in the previous video lecture, this unequal distribution of wealth is what is going to cause a lot of these structures of inequality to persist in the United States. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about systems of stratification. Some societies have closed systems of stratification, which are referred to as caste systems, wherein people are born into a particular caste, and they are not allowed to leave that caste for the rest of their lives. That is the caste they are born into. There are no exceptions. In caste systems, your class is in a scribe status that you have no control over. In the United States, we do not operate on a caste system. Rather, we operate in a open system of stratification, which we call a class system, wherein an individual's class is determined by social factors and individual achievement. In class systems, people can pursue different levels of education, different careers in comparison to their parents, which allow for opportunities to change one's social standing in the stratification system. Again, it's possible to improve your social class, but it is not as likely as an option for everyone. As we'll talk about throughout this semester, unpacking different systems of inequality pertaining to things like gender, race, educational attainment, family structure, criminal backgrounds, certain people are set up for success because the privileges that they occupy that enable them to move up in social class more so than other groups of individuals. Class socialization refers to the process in which parents and guardians convey to their children the culture, the values, the norms that go along with being a part of either the upper, the middle, or the lower class. So we talked about socialization earlier in the semester, right? The process through which individuals learn the values and norms of any given society. We learn the values and norms of the class that we're a part of as well, right? A class identification is an aspect of our social identities. So, for example, upper middle class parents tend to be very involved in their kids' social and academic lives. They schedule play dates with other kids. They likely check over their children's homework assignments when they bring them home. You may have heard the term helicopter parents to refer to parents that are just very much involved in the upbringing of their children. And this is typically some values and behaviors that are associated with being upper middle class individuals in our society. In comparison, working class parents often have much less time, much less money and other resources to help their children and tend to be more hands-off in structuring their kids' time, right? A working class parent likely isn't going to be scheduling play dates or looking over their kids' homework as much as upper middle class parents are, because working class parents likely have to work, 2 or 3 part-time jobs just to make sure that they have enough money to get food on the table and provide their children with the necessities that they require. While working class parents teach their children to obey authority, upper middle class parents often teach their children to think through decisions and to develop a sense of autonomy, which is another interesting distinction. So social mobility refers to the ability to change positions within a social stratification system. When we're talking about upward social mobility, we're referring to an individual's ability to improve their social class. So for example, to move from middle class to upper middle class, or from lower class to lower middle class would be examples of upward social mobility, which is obviously what most Americans strive for. However, sometimes people do experience downward mobility, which is a worsening of one's social class. So maybe you were born into a relatively wealthy upper middle class family, but perhaps you dropped out of high school, weren't able to get a college degree, and had to take a lower paying job, and now you are part of the lower middle class. So that would be an example of downward social mobility. Sometimes different family generations occupy different social classes. This is known as intergenerational mobility. So for example, Oprah Winfrey was born in a lower class family, and she's now one of the wealthiest people in the world. So that would be an example of intergenerational mobility. Sometimes a societal change enables a whole group of people to move up or down the class ladder. This is known as structural mobility. So examples of structural mobility would be in 2008, we had what was called the Great Recession. That was a structural change in the US economy that caused thousands of Americans to fall into a lower social class. We're probably going to experience another example of structural mobility currently as a result of the coronavirus, where millions of hourly workers are losing their jobs. Perhaps before they were in the lower middle class, they may now lose all of their income and cause a large group of people to now become lower class workers. And again, this is an example, not that those individuals were lazy, not that those individuals aren't trying hard enough. Sometimes there's these structural things that happen in our society, such as this pandemic, that cause thousands or millions of people to lose their jobs. And it doesn't make those people lazy. It doesn't mean that these people aren't working hard or that they're not trying hard enough. Sometimes there are things beyond our individual control that cause us to lower ourselves in terms of our socioeconomic status. So that's why it's really important to recognize that just because a person is poor or just because a person is in the lower class doesn't mean that they're lazy. It doesn't mean that they're not working hard enough. It just means that sometimes you can't pull yourself up by the bootstraps if there's this ceiling above you that every time you try and stand up or move up higher, you keep getting blocked by these structural forces that are beyond your control. So talking about social mobility in the American dream, in the United States, we are socialized from a very young age to endorse this idea of the American dream, the idea that if a person works hard enough, they can achieve anything. While determination and a good work ethic can help some people achieve upward social mobility, sociologists recognize that the American dream is not attainable by everyone. Remember, there are always going to be individual exceptions. People will say, my uncle came from nothing and worked his way to the top. But in sociology, we study patterns of human behavior, and research has consistently found that upward social mobility is not equally attainable by everyone. Most people in lower class will never achieve upward social mobility, not because they are lazy or lacking drive, but because structures of inequality make it impossible for them to do so. I'm now going to walk you through at least part of this game simulation called Spent. So if you open up the PowerPoint slides, which you'll also find on our Blackboard course website, you can click on the link in the PowerPoint slide, or you can just type it into your browser. It's playspent.org. And this is a virtual simulation game to help you kind of understand firsthand, if you never have before, what it is like to live as a lower class individual in our society. So this is just a game that simulates, like I said, what it's like to live in a lower social class. So the first task is that we need to find a job. The three options that are available to us are working in a warehouse. This is a second shift position, $9 an hour. Also an option to work in a restaurant. Hours vary. You get paid $2.13 an hour plus tips. And then there's also an option for an office temp. So the hours vary, and this is $9 an hour. Let's go ahead and take the warehouse job to start with. It says all that lifting and repetitive packing can be brutal on your body. The monthly pay that we were receiving before taxes, $14.40. After taxes, our monthly take-home pay is $1,224, which means every week we're getting paid $306. And it looks like we're starting off with a $1,000 balance here. All right, so the Affordable Care Act requires that we get health insurance. The good news, your child is covered by the state. The bad news, you aren't. So what plan do we want? We can do the gold plan, which is $330 a month, plus a $15 copay. Silver plan, a little cheaper. Bronze plan, even more affordable. Or we can opt out and not have health insurance. Seems like a very risky strategy, especially given the current pandemic that we're facing. So why don't we go ahead and take the bronze plan, which is the most affordable one, even though it does have the highest copay. Even the most basic plan under the Affordable Care Act covers more than what you could have gotten before, but almost $60 each paycheck. It's no free ride. All right, now we need to find a place to live. It looks like the closer we live to our job, the more expensive our rent is. The further away we live, the more affordable it is. But then, of course, we have higher travel costs. Presuming that we have a car, it's probably going to put a lot more work on our car to drive it that much. So why don't we go kind of a middle ground here? How about right around $800 a month for rent? Right? Just lets us know that our gas costs are going to be higher since we're living further away. Your new apartment is too small for your stuff. What do you want to do? Either rent a storage unit for $45, have a yard sale. Let's do a yard sale, maybe make a little money. All right, banked at $150. Your child wants to join an after-school sports team. Excuse me. I swear I don't have coronavirus. Which requires a physical and a uniform. What do you want to do? Say yes, allow our child to join, but pay $50, or say no. Well, we only have $350 left. I guess we're going to have to tell our kid not to join the club. You come out of your house and discover that someone has siphoned gas from your car and you're already running late for work. What do? Take the bus, call in sick, ask a friend for a ride, let's hop on the bus. It takes 3 buses and 5 times longer to get to work than it would driving, so you lose a couple hours of pay. Damn, taking our money away. You've been putting off doing laundry for weeks because you don't have a washer or dryer. What do you want to do? Go to the laundromat, wear dirty clothes. Here we could ask a friend, but we'd have to share it on Facebook or social media, so I guess instead let's just go to the laundromat. Your company has been introduced an option where instead of being paid by the hour, you can be paid by the piece. What do you want to do? So we can get paid for each piece that we produce on the factory line, or stay with an hourly paycheck. Tough call here. Let's stick with the hourly paycheck, more consistent. Your hourly pay is higher than your coworkers who opted for the pay by the piece system, but your supervisor cuts your hours to balance things out. Your future paychecks will be half the size. Right, your bathroom sink has a small leak that just became a big leak. Your landlord won't return your calls and you can't put it off any longer. What do? Try to fix it yourself or call a plumber? I don't know that I would be able to fix a leak in my sink, so I would probably have to resort to calling a plumber. Thank goodness it's payday, but we only got half of our paycheck since our hours got cut. One of your coworkers has gotten seriously ill. Because your company doesn't offer sick days, everyone is contributing $20 to help her out. What do you want to do? Oof, tough call here. Pitch in, be a good citizen, let's go for it. Your stress level is through the roof these days. A friend hears you venting and offers you a cigarette to take off the edge. What do you want to do? Say no! One of the main reasons people start smoking as adults is due to stress. That is very factual. A family friend sends your child a card. Inside is $10. What do you want to do? Give the child $10 or keep the $10? I guess we can give it to him. Don't want to take that away. You're sure you weren't speeding, but the cop who gave you a ticket disagrees. What do you want to do? Pay the ticket or contest it in court? Oh gosh, I guess we'll contest it in court. You didn't have enough money for the ticket. You get the ticket dismissed, but you had to spend the whole day in court and pay a $50 court fee. Ugh. So we got a strike on our job because we missed work for court. Money might be tight, but we got to go grocery shopping. Let's get bananas, eggs, hot dogs, I guess, milk, ramen, carrots. Let's just get a little bit of everything here. Some pasta, bread. Great. Alright, pay. Almost 15% of American households had a hard time getting enough food to eat at some point during 2012. 2 bills are due today. Our gas bill, electric bill, pay both. Oh geez. Well, we need our gas bill, we need our electric. Let's try and pay them both, but didn't have enough money. So we ran out of money on day 15, right? We couldn't even make it halfway through a month. living paycheck to paycheck like this. So hopefully you'll play this game on your own. Obviously, depending on the questions you answer and the choices you make, you might make it further or not as far. But the whole point of this simulation is to understand how difficult it can be to live if you're living in the lower class in our society, and how difficult it can be to attain upward social mobility when you're constantly facing these structural barriers.